So let's say the truth about the Canada Digital Nomad Visa. Is it really worth it?
Since Canada announced this new Digital Nomad Visa, there has been a lot of speculation about its pros and cons. And since I have been living in Canada for a year now as a digital nomad, I decided to share my knowledge and experience to help you maybe figure out if this visa is right for you. I'm going to discuss a few points like requirements, pros and cons, and to whom this visa is really worth it. When you talk about requirements for this visa, I saw many people complimenting this visa because it's kind of easy to get. It doesn't have an age limit. You don't have to have any proof of funds to apply for this visa. You don't have to collect points. And it also doesn't require a proficiency test in English or French. It doesn't require any of that because visitor visas don't require any of that. The Digital Nomad Visa has the same requirements as a regular tourist visitor visa. So what is the difference between the Digital Nomad Visa and a tourist visitor visa? The answer is none, and I will tell you why. When I was coming to Canada last year, I was planning to stay here longer than all the countries that I was traveling before in the previous years. I had a few things in mind, like I wanted to stay here longer than a regular visitor visa would allow me to. I wanted to be able to work here with Canadian companies and Canadian clients as a video producer to gain experience. And I was also thinking about maybe starting to count time and work experience towards a permanent residency here in Canada. I wanted to make sure that I was making the best decisions for myself. So I hired an immigration consultant that is specialized in Canada so he could help me understand what were the better options for me, what were the different paths that I could go to make all of that happen. And during that time, I asked him about this particular visa, the Digital Nomad Visa. So this information that I'm telling you is actually professional insider information. He was the person who told me that this Digital Nomad Visa is just like the visitor visa. The reason this visa was created was to attract a different type of public to Canada, so it was purely marketing. And he helped me figure out what was the best visa option for me for short and long term. So if you also need advice, if you're thinking about coming to Canada and you want to know what are the best options for you, if you need help with your visa, or if you want to know about maybe immigration possibilities here in Canada, I highly recommend his work. It was really impressive to me how much knowledge he had about all the types of visas and all the types of immigration programs that exist in Canada that are more than 100. His name is Diego, and I'm going to put his contact information on the description below. Now let's discuss a few pros and cons. To start with the pros, this visa is really not really hard to get, especially if you are eligible for the ETA, which is the electronic travel authorization that Canada allows to a few different nationalities, or if you have a valid US visa, you're also eligible for an ETA. You can do some research and figure it out if you are eligible. It's cheap and you do it online. You don't have to do a whole visa application. The Digital Nomad Visa, just like the visitor visa, allows you to work from Canada remotely for yourself or for other countries. You cannot work remotely in Canada for Canadian companies or Canadian clients if you are here and you don't have a work permit. You can work from Canada for yourself or for other countries remotely, as long as you're not working directly for a Canadian client or Canadian company. This is important because there are other countries that don't allow this. The US, for example, does not allow you to work remotely for other countries or for yourself if you are in US soil, even if you're working for a different country. So this is very relevant. While you're here, you are allowed to look for a job if you desire to find a job here in Canada. But if you want to start working, then you're gonna have to apply for a work permit. This visa allows you to stay in Canada for 6 months. And if you want to stay longer, you can apply for extension. And if it's approved, you can stay here for 1 year total. Now, the cons are that you are not allowed to work for a Canadian company or for Canadian clients legally while you are in Canada. The time that you're gonna spend here as a visitor or on the Digital Nomad Visa, which is the same thing as you can tell by this moment, will not count towards a permanent residency if you want to apply for a PR one day. To count as work experience towards a PR, you have to have a work permit and work for a Canadian-based company. And this visa also doesn't allow you to bring a spouse or a child. They would have to get their own visas. The digital nomad visa has the same pros and cons as a visitor visa. So to whom is it really worth it? I think this visa is worth it if you don't have the intention to, first, get a job that is in a Canadian company or with Canadian clients, and or two, create a path towards permanent residency in Canada. If you just want to be here up to 6 months while you work for yourself or you work for a company outside of Canada, this visa will serve you just like the visitor visa would serve you. And also, if you do change your mind about those 2 points while you're here in Canada, you can apply for a work permit or to a different type of visa from within the country. But if you already know that you want to stay here longer, more than a year, or if you want to stay here a year but you want to have the opportunity to work here, I think you should think about your options a little bit more thoroughly, and Diego could definitely help you understand what are the best visa options for you. I honestly think that the visa that I have now is one of the best visas to come to Canada if you want to stay slightly longer time than a visitor visa, and also with the permission to work in Canadian-based companies. I'm going to make another video to explain more about this visa that I have. I'm going to link it here when it's done. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.